In today's video, I'm going to show you a number of tips for working with the desktop on the Mac. This includes everything from turning off Click to Show the Wallpaper, which was introduced in macOS Sonoma and can get quite annoying, to how we can show or hide items on the desktop, how we can show or hide external drives, as well as how we can keep folders on top and even clean up our desktop and use desktop stacks. Let's take a look at how we work with the desktop on the Mac. Now, before we get started, if you like what you see here, stick around to the end. I'll tell you a little bit more about myself and how you can help support my efforts in creating these videos. All right, let's get back over to my tips on working with the desktop on the Mac. Now, the first tip that I'm going to show you is how we can turn off Click to Wallpaper to show the desktop. This was introduced in macOS Sonoma, and I think in a lot of cases it can get a little bit annoying. So let's see what I mean. Let's go over to my Mac. So I'm looking at my Mac here. Let's go ahead and open up a few windows. And what Apple introduced with macOS Sonoma was the option to click the wallpaper here to show the desktop. What it's going to do is it's going to move all of my windows. Now, while that sounds nice, you can see all the windows are moved there and I can get at the desktop, it can actually get a little annoying because all you have to do is just click anywhere on the desktop here and it'll move those windows out of the way. So if you don't have any windows open, and then you click on the desktop, it's going to move everything away, but actually there's nothing there to move away. You can see we have a dark border here. So what I like to do is I like to just turn that off. How can we turn that off? Well, it's just a system setting. So now what I need to do is I need to go to my system settings here, and then what we go to is desktop and dock. Under desktop and dock, when you're using macOS Sonoma or later, there's going to be an option for Click Wallpaper to reveal desktop. All I need to do is just turn this to only in Stage Manager. So when you're using Stage Manager, it'll still work. And actually works pretty good when we're working with Stage Manager. But since I'm not using Stage Manager here, I don't want to have that on. So I just go select that. So now it will only use that feature when I'm using Stage Manager. So now if I click on this wallpaper here, you can see it doesn't move any windows out of the way. So that's our first tip, how you can turn that little annoying feature. I feel it's a little annoying, how you can turn that feature off. Now, the next tip that we're going to look at is how we can show or hide items on our desktop. So I have all of my files and folders here on my desktop. You may want to hide these. How can you hide these? There used to be, or there still are, third-party applications that will do that for you, but you can actually do it from within the macOS system settings. All we have to do is just go over to our system settings here again, and then we go over to our desktop and dock. And again, with macOS Sonoma, we have an option here for Show Items. So from here, all I need to do is just make sure that this is unchecked, and when I do, we can see it hides all of the items on the desktop. So if you're given a presentation, you don't want to have anything shown on your desktop, this is an easy way to hide all those items. To show them again, all you have to do is just select this and it'll show them. It doesn't actually move them out of the folder. I'm going to go and hide this again. And you may know this, but the desktop is just a folder. So when I go over to a new folder here and we go over to my desktop, we can see all the items are still in there. They're just not showing on the desktop. So let's go ahead and show those again. I do like to show them on my desktop. But if you need to turn them off or hide them, you can do that temporarily just by doing that. Now, in the next tip, I'm going to show you how you can hide your external devices or even show your Macintosh hard drive. By default, what the Mac used to do is show the Macintosh hard drive on your desktop. Well, we can have it do that again. So let's go back over to my Mac and see how we can do this. First thing we're going to look at is how we can hide our external drives. Maybe you want to hide these. All we have to do is just go over to our Finder settings. So I'm in my Finder here, and then we go over to our settings. Under Settings, we go over to General, and then under General, we can set what we want to show. So we can see that I have external drives or external disks checked. If I uncheck this, watch what happens. This is going to disappear. So I uncheck it, and it is no longer there. So now how do I get to that external drive? Well, we can still get to it through a Finder window. I just open up a new Finder window, and then in the sidebar here, there is Locations. And you're going to see we have my external drive. It's a Samsung drive. So I can select this, and I can still see what is in that drive. It's just not going to show on my desktop. Now, I also mentioned that we can show our Macintosh hard drive on our desktop. This used to be the default behavior of the Mac. If you like that, what you can do is go back over to your Finder Preferences or Finder Settings again, and then you just select hard disks. When I select this, any internal hard drives are going to show, including your Macs. I'm going to set it to the default behavior. I like to show my external drives, but I really don't need to get at my hard disk. If I want to get at my hard disk, again, I can go to a new Finder window, go to Locations here, and select this to get at my hard drive. I don't get at it that often, so there's no reason to have it on my desktop. But if you like to have that, you can do that. Now, the next tip I'm going to share with you is cleanup. What we can do is we can have our Mac clean up our desktop, and we have several options for this. Let's go back over to my Mac. So I have all of my files here on my desktop. But what I can do right now is I can move them around. You can see that when I added the external drive, it moved over to the left. I have a blank spot here. What we're able to do is arrange all of this. We have a few different options, as I mentioned, so hopefully I won't confuse anyone here. But first of all, what we can do is we can select what we want to arrange, and when we do that, what it's going to do is snap it to a grid. So we can see that these files here are not snapped to a grid. So I want to clean these up. This is what we're going to look at first. All I have to do is just select them. So I have those 3 files selected. And then we go up under View, and you're going to see Cleanup Selection. So I just select this, and now it just aligns them in a nice grid pattern. So that's the first thing we can do. We can also sort all of our different files, sort them by name or by kind or by date. And then what it's going to do is it's going to move them all over to the right here in our sort order. So I'd like to sort them by name. So I go up under View, and then we go over to Clean Up By, and then I select how I want to sort them. So I'm going to go with Name, and watch what happens. It moves them all over, and it's sorting them by name. Your hard drives are going to be at the top. But outside of that, you can see that it is sorting by name. I can also sort by kind. I go over here to kind, and now it's sorting by kind. So put all my folders together. Kind of nice. But with this, it still is easy to mess this up. I can go and just drag these all around. And then I have to go back up under View, and then clean it up again, and then it'll move them back. Well, we can also have it do this for us automatically. So then I'm not able to mess it up by moving these around. To do that, what we do is we go back under View, and then you're going to see Sort By. When we sort by, what it does is it remembers how it is going to be sorted. So then if I add more files or folders, it'll keep them sorted. So Clean Up By is just a one-time thing. Sort By keeps them sorted. So now let's go with Snap to Grid. We're just going to go and take a quick look at a couple of these. Snap to Grid is going to keep them sorted by grid. So if I go and move these, you can see that it's keeping them sorted by grid. So I can't place one file on top of another. It's just going to keep it nicely arranged. But I'm still able to move things around where I want. So I could move all my folders in the upper left-hand corner here if I wanted to. It's just going to keep them nice and arranged by grid. But what I like to do is I actually like to sort them by kind or name. So if we go with name here, it keeps them over here on the right. And if I go and add another folder, what it's going to do is add it to the end. But let's just go and call this AAA. And now we can see it put it at the beginning because it's sorting by name. And then we can also sort by kind. We have a lot of different options here, but these are typically what I see is sort by name and sort by kind. I prefer kind. So now I select kind, and now we can see all of my folders are here together, sorted together, and then my images are sorted together, and my PDFs are sorted together. So it's grouping them together by kind. So that's how we can clean up our desktop. We have a lot of different options for cleaning up the desktop. Typically, like I said, what I will see is people just go up under View, and then we go and sort by, and then we set how we want it to sort. So that's how we clean up our desktop. Now in this next tip, we're going to see how we can keep our folders on top. This is an extension of cleaning up our desktop. Let's go back over to my Mac. So I have it sorted by kind, but let's just go ahead and sort it by name. So I'm just going to go and sort it by name. So we can see that my folders are interspersed here. Now what I would like to do is actually keep my folders grouped together, but I still want to have everything else sorted by name. This was added a couple of years ago. All we have to do to group our folders together, we keep them on top. What we do is we go back over to our Finder settings, and then what we do is we go over to Advanced. Under Advanced, you're going to see an option for Keep Folders on Top. When I select on Desktop here, what it's going to do is keep all of my folders here on top at the beginning, and then the rest of my files are going to be sorted by name. So let's go ahead and select this. I go Desktop. We can see all of my folders here are grouped together. They're on top or at the beginning, and then we can see it's sorted by name here. Now my next tip is for desktop stacks. This is actually one of my favorite features with Mac OS X. This was introduced several years ago. Let's go back over to my Mac and take a look at desktop stacks. Now I have my desktop arranged by name. So if I go and add another file, let's go ahead and just duplicate this. It's going to keep them ranged by name. So it's going to kind of keep it organized. Well, I shouldn't even say kind of. It's going to keep it organized. But the problem is if you have a lot of files, this can get filled up pretty quick. Let's go ahead and duplicate a number of these. So I just selected, I'm going to duplicate them. And let's go ahead and duplicate it again. And you can see that my desktop is starting to fill up. It's still arranged nicely. I can see all of my images here are together, or it's arranged by name. Everything is all looking good. It's snapping to the grid, but it's starting to get a little bit full. What I like to do is I like to arrange these as a desktop stack. So then what it'll do is it'll stack all of your documents together. Right now they're grouped together. They're grouped together by name, let's say. Well, let's go ahead and change it to group together by kind. So I just go up under here to sort, and we're going to sort them by kind. So it's grouping all of my different files together by kind. But what we can do is we can have all of these stacked on top of each other. So all of my PDFs are going to be stacked on top of each other. All of my images are going to be stacked on top of each other. To do that, all we have to do is just go up under View again, and then you're going to see Use Stacks. Again, one of my favorite features. So I select this, and watch what happens. We now have stacks. So now I can see all of my documents here. I can see all of my images, and I can see all of my PDF documents. Now from here, if I wanted to look for a specific PDF document, all I have to do is just click on this and it opens up that stack. So we can see that it is open here. So here's all of my different documents. To close it, I just click on it again and it closes it. So we have images. Click on it, I can see all of my images. Click on it again, it closes it. We can even open up multiple stacks. So we can see I have all of my PDFs here and all of my images. But the nice thing about this is that it keeps my desktop far more organized. I could have 20 different PDF documents here. It's just going to keep them in a stack. Now it only does this on the desktop. If I go over to a Finder window and I look at my desktop, you're going to see I still have all of my different items here. It doesn't stack them in a Finder window. It only stacks them on the desktop. You can set how it's going to stack them. We just go back up under View, and then we set how we want to group it. So I have it generally stacked by kind. That's how I like to do it. But you could go and stack them by when they were modified. So let's go ahead and select this. And now we can see these are all the files that I worked on today. And these are all the files that I worked in 2023. I click on this and I can see all those files. So you can also group them by day. I'm going to go back over to kind. That's typically how I will have it. So those are our desktop stacks. Added a couple of years ago to Mac OS. One of my favorite features. The next tip, what I'm going to do is show you how you can change the icon size. So what we're able to do is change the size of these icons here. How can we do that? Well, basically all we have to do is just go up under View, and then you're going to see an option for View Options. So I show my View Options. What this is going to do is this is going to open up a new window, and I have a few different options here. The one that we're going to look at is icon size. So now all I need to do is just go and drag this down here a little bit, and we can see it's making my icon smaller. So if you do have a lot of items on your desktop, what you may want to do is make your icon smaller. So that's how you can do that, through the Show View options. We have another option for our Show View options. In addition to changing the icon size, we can change the grid size. Let's see what I mean by that. So when we look at my Mac here, you're going to see that since I made my icon smaller, what I'd like to do is actually space these a little closer together. This is the grid size. So what I can do is I can change this grid pattern to make it a little bit tighter. How do we do that? Well, again, we go back over to our Show View options. So I just go up under View, and then we go over to our Show View options. This is where we change the icon size. So I select it, and instead of going to icon size, what we do is we go over to grid spacing. So now what I'm able to do is just take this little slider here, and I drag it over to the left, and take a look at those icons. You can see they're getting a little bit tighter there. So what we're able to do is change the grid size for our different icons. So if you make the icon smaller, what you also may want to do is change the grid spacing. In my next tip, I'm going to show you how you can share your desktop with all of your other devices. Basically, what we're able to do is move our desktop and our documents folder, those two folders, we can move those over to iCloud. And then when we do, we can access them from our other devices because they're in iCloud. Let's see how we do that. Let's go back over to my Mac. First thing that we need to do is we need to go to our system settings. We need to go to our iCloud settings. So now what we do is we go over to our system settings, and then we click on our name. This is where we have our different iCloud settings. I select this, and then from here we need to go to iCloud. Under iCloud, you're going to see the option for iCloud Drive. iCloud Drive is much like Dropbox or Google Drive. Basically what it is it allows you to keep different folders or create different folders in the cloud, and then you can access them from other devices. Well, there's an option for this. When I click on it, there's an option to keep our desktop and documents folder automatically in the cloud. So then what I'm able to do again is go over to iCloud from my iPad, and I can see that desktop folder, and I can access anything that is on my desktop here from my iPad or from another Mac or from my iPhone. All we have to do is just make sure that this is turned on. When we turn this on, it basically moves your desktop and documents folder from your Mac over to iCloud. Now, it's pretty seamless. If you have a lot of items on your desktop, it might take a little bit to upload them to the cloud. Basically, now when I go to my desktop here, you're going to see that it is located in iCloud Drive. So if I want to access my desktop, I just click on Desktop here, and we can see that it is in iCloud Drive. If I go to iCloud Drive, you're going to see that I have my desktop here as well as my documents. If I go to my Mac, and we go over to my Users folder, you're going to see that I do not have a desktop folder here. This is typically where it is. But since I moved it to iCloud, it is now located in iCloud. Now there's going to be one catch to this. If you do use iCloud Drive for your documents and desktop folder, which I've been using for several years now and it works great, what you may want to do is purchase more storage. So what you're going to do is go over to your system settings, go over to iCloud here, and then you're going to go to iCloud again, and then you're going to have to go and manage your storage. You might have to purchase more storage because you're storing your files in iCloud. So it's going to take that 5 gigabytes that Apple gives you, and you're going to use that 5 gigabytes pretty quickly. But if you're going to purchase more storage, you can actually store your documents and desktop in iCloud. So that's how we can access our desktop from our other devices. Now, in the last tip, what I'm going to do is show you how you can show your desktop. Remember how in the first tip I talked about how you click on this and it hides all the windows? I do like to do that. If I have a lot of windows open here, let's just go ahead and open up a few windows. If I have a lot of windows open here, the problem that I have is I can't get at that desktop. I turned off the feature to where when I click, it hides the desktop. So what can I do? I don't want to turn that back on because that can get a little bit annoying. Well, you can use a hot corner. This is an old trick that I've used for several years. Basically, what we can do is we can set our Mac to do something when we move our cursor into the corner. So I have mine set to show the desktop. I'll show you how you do this shortly, but basically when I move my cursor in the lower left-hand corner, watch what happens. I can see my desktop. Move it again, all my windows show back. So I can still access my desktop. I can still hide all the windows, but I don't have to use that pesky little click on the wallpaper to show your desktop, which, like I said, can get annoying. So how did I set this up? Well, basically all you have to do is just go over to your desktop and dock. And then at the very bottom here, you're going to see hot corners. Under hot corners, what we're able to do is set what we want our Mac to do when we move our cursor into a corner. So I generally will use the lower left-hand corner, and all I have to do is just select desktop here. So when I select desktop, that tells me, or tells the Mac, to show the desktop when I move my cursor in the corner. Move the cursor again, and then I can see my desktop. So we can still get that original feature that Apple added. We just can set it up through a hot corner and we have a little bit more control with it. So that's one of my favorite tips to show people. So those are some tips on how to use the desktop. Basically, we can turn off our wallpaper to show the desktop. I think that can get a little annoying. This was introduced with macOS Sonoma, so you want to turn that off. We can also show or hide our items on the desktop. We can hide external drives. We can keep our folders on top. We can arrange our desktop items. We can also change the icon size. And then, of course, we can use stacks. So we have a lot of different options with our desktop. So that's how we can manage our desktop on the Mac.